Hello everyone, I am Vaijayanthi, Assistant Professor at Department of Psychology. Today I am going to give a lecture on the topic memory. Memory is our cognitive system to encode, store and retrieve information. So without memory, other cognitive aspects like learning, thinking or problem solving won't be possible. Today we are going to see the information processing model. Okay, that says how the information from the outer world enters into our long-term memory. This model was proposed by Atkinson and Shiffrin, and this model is also called as model of memory. So, when the information is presented to us, it reaches our long-term memory through different stages. First, the information hits our sensory memory. So, we have 5 senses and the information enters through these senses to our sensory memory. So, like visual informations would enter our iconic memory, which is the memory for visual information, and the auditory information would enter echoic memory. So some of the examples of sensory memory would be like in a dark room when a flashlight is flashed in a particular pattern. We could trace the pattern, but it can't be remembered for after some say 5 minutes or something like that. If it is not entered to the short-term memory, the information in the sensory memory would be lost. So the information would be stored for less than 1 second in sensory memory. And next comes the short-term memory. So the information from the sensory memory to short-term memory, the passage happens through the process of selective attention. If we don't attend the information, it would eventually get lost. But if we selectively attend an information, it would be carefully moved to the short-term memory. We all could see an example. So right now we are all attending this lecture. So by this time somebody might be talking or engaging in a conversation near to you, and some other noise, some tones might be played, but though you could hear it, it won't be entering into your memory. If someone asks what those two people were conversing, you might not be able to report because you have not paid attention to that information. So only through selective attention, the information would be moved from sensory memory to short-term memory. So the second stage is short-term memory. This short-term memory is also called as working memory. Okay, so the short-term memory also has a limited time for storage. It happens within 15 to 25 seconds. So after 25 seconds, if the information is not transferred from long-term memory, it would eventually be lost. So how the information is maintained in the short-term memory? Through the process of repetitive rehearsal, or we call it as maintenance rehearsal. So one best example for short-term memory is somebody is telling you a phone number. Okay, and you don't have a pen or note or your mobile to note down the phone number. What we would usually do, we'll just keep on repeating the number until we find our notebook or our mobile phone. So that is the best example of storing information in short-term memory. Just through repetition we can store the information through short-term memory. And recent views says that short-term memory involves just passive storage of information. It also involves active processing. That is why short-term memory is also called as working memory. Next, from short-term memory, the information is moved to the long-term memory through the process of elaborative rehearsal. So the information that has to be taken to long-term memory has to be processed in a deeper level. So based on the level of processing, the information would be taken to the long-term memory. That is, it could be stored for longer period of time. So this slide shows an example of sensory memory. We could see that a flash of lightning. Okay, so that happens every time in night sky. We could see a flash of lightning, but will we be able to trace the pattern again after seeing that lightning? Probably not, because it happens for very less. The time we could see is very less, or it happens in a fraction of a second, and that's why we won't be able to retrace the pattern. So that is one best example of sensory memory. Yes, short-term memory. So here we have another example for short-term memory. So we could see that in the left we have a chessboard with coins placed in particular positions. So if I show this board for you for a couple of minutes, and if I ask you to replicate the same pattern in the second board, will you be able to do that? So research says that 90% of the experienced chess player could do that. Only 40% of inexperienced chess players, that is who doesn't have much experience with playing chess, could do it better, like could replicate the pattern. Why does this research says that the experienced chess players are having better memory? Probably not. This is because out of their experience, they are able to organize these coins as meaningful information, or it is also called as chunks. Okay, So that is one better thing that we could do with short-term memory. So the short-term memory, the information could be stored only for less than 25 seconds. We have already said that. And there is one other limitation with short-term memory, that is it can hold only up to 7 information at a time. Okay, so replicating a whole chessboard might be not possible, but if we could, separate it into 7 different chunks, replicating it to the next board would be easy probably. So that is what experienced chess players could do. There is one other example I have mentioned in the PPT. So you could see that random alphabets has been given, and if you are asked to remember all these alphabets, it would be difficult. But if you could organize into smaller chunks, so like PBS, Fox, CNN, ABC, if we could organize into smaller chunks, so as you could see that there are only 7 chunks. So if in that case, this contains only 7 information, and you can easily store it in short-term memory, and you can recollect it also. Okay, so I've already told that the short-term memory is not just passive storage of information, it actively involves in processing the information also. So say for example, I'm giving you 3 numbers to add. Okay, so now you will be adding the first 2 numbers, and you would be storing the intermediate results somewhere. Where would you be storing? That would happen with your short-term memory or working memory. So in case of all the mathematical calculation that we do in our mind, and in case of language processing, say for example, I'm giving you a sentence. Okay, so I went to the restaurant and met Rajesh there today. He was having his dinner with his son. Okay, so this statement actually contains 2 different sentences, right? So this paragraph or the statement contains 2 different sentences, and the second sentence has pronoun he and his son, right? So how do we relate this pronoun? We could automatically understand that here he means Rajesh and his sons means Rajesh son, right? So we could easily interpret these sort of information only because of the working memory. So this sort of active processing will be going on with working memory. As you all could see in the PPT, working memory has different compartments, like different parts of brain are involved in working memory. So certain region is involved in visual and processing visual and spatial material, and the second part of the brain is involved, or a different part of brain is involved in processing verbal information, and some other part would be involved in processing, like it serves as episodic buffer. Right, so you would be able to store the events there. So all the information from these different regions would be taken to the central executive, and there it would be processed. Okay, so most of all these region lies somewhere within our frontal lobe of our brain. Okay, so now we have understood that the information from sensory memory will be moved to the short-term memory through the process of selective attention. Right. So from the short-term memory, the information has to be moved to the long-term memory for retaining it for a longer period of time. So how that happen? We mentioned that through elaborative rehearsal. So the information that we study, say for example, now you are listening to the lecture, what is the probability that you would remember this lecture for a longer period of time? If you are able to relate it to the previously studied concepts of memory, if you are able to relate to it, and if you are actively processing the information, whatever the lines I'm saying, whatever the keywords I'm saying, if you are able to process it, you would be able to store it better, and you can have your retrieval cues to retrieve it from the long-term memory. So it will be stored for a longer period of time. Yes, so long-term memory is a broader term, and it has different sections. So the first, it has 2 major types, and the first type is declarative memory. Okay, so declarative memory mostly consists of our autobiographical memory, that is a experiences from our life, that would be stored under declarative memory. So any life event that we could go back in time and trace and recollect comes under declarative memory. Okay, so the example given is like George Washington was the first president of the United States. So something like that. And you could say, when I was studying 2nd standard, my English teacher was so and so, and she was very kind, and she taught me a lot of things. If you are able to narrate these sort of information, then probably you are recollecting the information from your declarative memory. Again, you could see that the declarative memory is getting classified into 2 other types. The first one is semantic memory, and the second one is episodic memory. What is semantic memory? So semantic memory stores mostly factual informations. Okay, so we all have learnt many languages, say for example English, and we are so thorough with the concepts of grammar, right? That is why we are able to fluently talk in English and also we are able to write in English. So where are these concepts stored? And the meaning of each and every word. Say for example, I'm telling you a word, for example, enthusiasm. So immediately you are able to get the meaning of it, right? So where is that meaning stored? The research shows that all the meanings and factual informations are stored under semantic memory. And I'm asking you, how many states are there in India? Who is the president of India? So all these sort of informations would be stored in semantic memory, right? And most of our competitive exams test our semantic memory, right? So we'll be having a question with 4 options and we have to choose one among them. So all sort of these questions would be checking your semantic memory. And the next form of declarative memory is episodic memory. So episodic memory is the one that stores life events mostly, right? And something going back in time and remembering what happened by then. So those sort of informations would be stored in episodic memory. As I said, what happened when you were in 2nd standard? What happened when you were writing your public exam? 10th public exam, 12th public exam. If you are able to recollect information, what happened during your sister's marriage, right? So those sort of information would be recollected from your episodic memory. Okay, and another type of long-term memory is called as procedural memory. Okay, so this includes the memory for our skills and habits. Okay, so say for example, you all might know to ride a bicycle, right? And you all might know to swim. You all might know to cook. So where are these skills stored? It is stored under the procedural memory. So the compartment formation of these memory has been proved in different researches. So say for example, in case of amnesia or in case of brain injury, the patient might lose declarative memory, say for example semantic memory, but the procedural memory might stay intact. So in case of amnesia, especially psychogenic amnesia, we could see that people could remember most of their procedural memory. They could brush their teeth, they could do all the skilled activities, right? And also some sort of semantic memory might also stay intact, but they might not remember their life experiences, who they are, what was their name, like what's their name, who was their parents. So those information they might not remember. So these case studies has provided evidence that our memory has been categorized into semantic memory, episodic memory and procedural memory in our brain. Broadly, our memory is also categorized into 2 types, explicit memory and implicit memory. So explicit memory is that information, it stores information that could be brought to consciousness and reported. Okay, so declarative memory comes under explicit memory. As I told you, you could go back in time or you could remember and tell, right, what happened. So it could be brought to your consciousness. Even semantic information, you can bring the information to your consciousness and you could report it. So that is a form of explicit memory. And implicit memory, procedural memory comes under implicit memory. It would be hard to explain it to others. The knowledge or the skills stored, it would be hard to explain to others. Okay, so say for example, consider dosa batter, right? So you all might know, your mom would, just by seeing the batter, she would say, this batter would make fluffy idlis. This batter would not make fluffy idlis. How could she say that? Even if we ask, she would say, just by seeing I could say, right? So exactly how she had acquired that knowledge. Okay, so these sort of information, we can't get that from the person. We have to try it ourselves. So another example could be like, can you, learn riding a bicycle by attending an online lecture like this? Probably not. People can't transfer information like that through lectures or by, they can't consciously explain that knowledge they have acquired. It's like they can give you certain tips and you have to apply it by yourself and you have to learn. Okay, so this applies to every other skills like, playing piano or, sculpting. So all these activity that comes under procedural memory is part of implicit memory also. So the factors that affects our memory includes amount of practice and spacing between practice. Say for example, best example would be like your preparation for the exams, right? So a particular question you might be studying for 5 times or 10 times and you might practice writing it like say for example 3 times. If you do it this way, if you prepare it this way, there are more chances for you to write that question without losing any information, without forgetting any information in the exams. Okay, so amount of practice, how many times you are practicing it, that affects your memory. And also spacing between practice. So, like most of the students used to do this way, like studying before the day of exam. In a single day, they'll try to cover all the portions. They might score better in their exams, but after 3 months, if we ask the concepts, they might not be able to remember. This is because there is not enough spacing between acquiring the information. So we have to spread out our practice. Say for example, we could study for 1 hour and we can take a rest for some like 20 minutes. It's not like literally rest, we could just do some other activity. Or we can even, club between subjects. First 1 hour we can study maths, then we can have a 5 minutes break. Then the next 1 hour we can concentrate on English or any other subject. If we could distribute our practice and if you could provide enough spacing between the practice, then there are more chances for the information to move to a long-term memory and it would be stored for a longer period of time. There is one other view that was proposed by Craig and Lockhart. So that is called as levels of processing view. Okay, so how many deeper the level of processing, chances are more for that information to be remembered for a longer period of time. Okay, that is what is called as levels of processing view. It has been established through an experiment wherein 4 group of participants were taken. Okay, so they were all given certain set of words and they were asked to remember that words after some point of time. Okay, so what were these 4 groups asked to do with that word? So the first group of participants, they were just asked to whether the word is having capital letters or it is written in small letters. So that level of processing alone was made to done for those participants. And the second group of participants, they were shown those 2 words, like a set of words, and they were asked whether a particular word rhyme with another word. Say for example, a word, they would be shown a word like enigmatic and they would be asked whether it rhymes with the word pragmatic, whether it rhymes with the word enthusiastic. They might answer yes or no. Okay, so the third group of participants, they would be shown the word and they would be asked to tell the meaning of the word, or they would be shown that word used in a sentence and they would be asked whether this sentence makes meaning. So obviously this is like a deeper level of processing. They are trying to understand the meaning of the word and they are trying to use it in a sentence. Okay, and the fourth group of participants, they were asked to use that word in their personal life experience and they were asked to come up with an event or make a sentence. So we could clearly see that the level of processing is getting deeper and deeper from group 1 to group 4. Obviously the result shows that group 4 participants were able to remember more words when compared to group 1. This is the experiment conducted by Craig and Lockhart, and this suggests that levels of processing, like deeper the level of processing, more chances for the information to exist in a long-term memory for a longer period of time. Then the next concept is serial position curve. Okay, so this is like we all might remember. So probably your mom would ask you to buy some grocery items, right? So she might say some 10 items and you would go to the grocery shop. Unless you note it, it's like you would remember just 4 or 5 of them. Maybe like the first few and the last few you might be able to remember, and in the center there are more chances for you to lose information. So why does this happen? This could be explained by the concept of serial position curve. Okay, so the first few items in the list will also, so if you are provided with a list of words, and you are having a look for some 5 seconds or 10 seconds, there are more chances for you to remember the first few words and the last few words. So remembering the first few words is called as primacy effect, and remembering the last few words is called as recency effects. Why does this happen? This would probably happening because the first few words would have gone to your long-term memory, because you had enough time for the information to be moved from short-term memory by processing it to long-term memory, and the last few words that might be still available in your short-term memory. Because of this reason, probably first few words and last few words are easy for you to remember when compared to the middle words. So with respect to episodic memory and semantic memory, especially episodic memory, the retrieval might depend on your state or state of consciousness, context in which the information was encoded, and it could also be depend on your mood. Okay, first we see what is state dependent retrieval. Okay, say for example, we all know this example, right? So when someone consumes alcohol, okay, they go to a different state, like altered state of consciousness because of that drug, and the events happening at that point of time, whatever they talk, whatever they do, those actions might not be remembered by them on the very next day. Okay, so if we say that you are doing this thing after consuming alcohol, they might not be able to remember. They would say, really, did I do that, right? So why does that forgetting happens, or what was that thing that was going on in their mind? The probability is that on the very next occasion of taking alcohol, they might remember the things happened on the previous occasion when they took alcohol. So it is like different states. They were in different different state of consciousness while taking alcohol or any other drug, and on normal state of consciousness, those information that they gathered during the altered state of consciousness might not be available. So again, going back to that state might provide them retrieval cues to remember those information that happened during their altered state of consciousness, that is when they took the alcohol. So this is what is called as state dependent retrieval. Next one is called as context dependent retrieval. Okay, so this is one of the best example. You might be studying in your room for your exams, and you might hear a bird chirping near to your room, or you might have your fragrance fragrance of your room freshener, or some other noises, familiar things, right? You're remembering, you're learning new information in this environment. So next day you are going to your classroom or to your college, and you are appearing for the exams. Okay, you might you might lose some information, you might not remember certain points, and somehow you complete your exams and you come back to your home. Again, after entering to your room, there are more chances for you to remember those lost information. If you sit on the same table, and if you think it will be more easier for you to remember the whole answer compared to the exams, compared to the remembering that happened in your exams. So this affects your performance also. So even in people having visual memory, they would be actually seeing the pages, right? So the question, say for example on memory, the answer for that question memory, it starts on page number say 203, so that page is left side. Okay, so it will be having the heading, and so people would be visually running the pages. Okay, so the context in which they study, okay, and the information that provided in that particular situation, that would serve as retrieval cues for them to remember the information. In different contexts, it might be hard for them to remember the same information. So one other experiment was also conducted in this aspect. So deep sea divers, they were asked to memorize certain words when they were under water, and also when they were on the beach. Okay, so different set of words. When they were say for example, so the words that were memorized under the sea, the remembering of those words were more when they were under the sea. When they came to beach, those words were probably less remembered. Similarly, the words that were memorized on the beach, the chances for them to remember those words were more on the beach than underwater. So this is one best example, or this is one of the best experiment conducted to prove context dependent retrieval. Okay, and the third one is mood dependent memory. This is very common, we all might have experienced. When we are in happy mood, things happen during when we were previously in happy mood, those memories would be popping up in our mind. Okay, and when we are in sad mood, so whatever events happened when we were previously in sad mood, those memories would be popping out. So this is one best example, or best reason why people are having relationship problem. So whenever people get into fights, okay, so they would all start remembering whatever things happened when they were previously engaging in fight. Okay, so that anger state will anger mood, okay, will fetch information that happened in the previous anger state. So at that point of time, it would be hard for them to recollect information that happened when they were happily engaging in their relationship. So that is what is mainly causing a lot of relationship problems also. So till now we were talking about episodic memory. Now we'll see semantic networks, like semantic memory, how the information is stored in semantic memory. As I said, all the factual information would be stored in our semantic memory. So it will be like going back in time and fetching those information. Say for example, you might know that 2 plus 2 is 4, right? So when did you learn that 2 plus 2 is 4? Probably you might not be able to exactly remember the day when you learned 2 plus 2 is 4. You might say like in UKG or first standard, but the exact day can't be remembered that easily, right? So that is one characteristics of semantic memory. So let's see how the concepts, or how the factual informations will be stored in semantic memory. So as you could see here, this is an example of semantic networks. Okay, so there are different concepts, okay, that is stored in our semantic memory. So you could see that car, ambulance, fire engine. So everything comes under the concept of vehicle. Okay, so all those things are related. And fire engine is red in color. So you could also see concepts like colors, orange, yellow, red and green are arranged in a different network pattern. And this fire engine is red in color. So this red and fire engine, this is connected. Okay, so you all know what network is, right? So things would be like interconnected. So this is how the concepts will be arranged. So this could be best explained when we observe 3-year or 4-year-old. Okay, they might be like finding it hard, or they might be forming their own semantic networks, right? So say for example, you can ask them the question like what is living thing and what is non-living thing. You can ask them whether the chair is a living thing or non-living thing. An animal, say for example a dog is a living thing or non-living thing. They might come up with some answer, right? This is living and that is non-living, or this is non-living and that is living. So how do you say that? If you ask them, they might say something funny like everything that moves is living, everything that is stationary is non-living, or everything that has mouth is living and everything that doesn't have mouth is non-living, right? So these sort of characteristics will be associated with each concepts while they are formed. Okay, there are several other views apart from having concepts. Okay, so one other view states that in semantic memory the information should be stored as prototype. Okay, so what is prototype? Prototype is an abstract idealized representations that capture an average or typical notion of members of the category. Okay, so this is also a very good view. So say for example, I am telling you to assume a politician. Okay, so particularly in our state. So what will be going on in your mind? Okay, you might think of someone wearing white shirt, white dhoti, holding some flag, and you might also associate characteristics like they would be very good at arguments. Okay, they would be having a very strong personality. So these sort of traits you would associate just with the word politician, right? So this is what is an example of prototype. Okay, so and if you are shown another person and asked to define whether that person is a politician or not, obviously you will be relating this characteristics to them and you would try to judge whether that person is a politician or not. Okay, so this is what is called as prototypical view of semantic memory. And the next one is exemplar view. Okay, this view states that for each category of information we would be storing a example. Okay, readily available example. Say for example, I am telling you to remember a fruit. What immediately comes to your mind? Probably an apple or orange or banana, right? So whenever we are asked to list fruits, these are all the common fruits that comes to your mind. So an example in each of these category will be stored in your mind, and you will try to relate each other new thing that you face by comparing these example with the already available example. Say for example, I am giving you a totally different fruit, okay, and say for example rambutan, and will you be able to find whether it is a fruit, especially when it is in an unripe state? Probably it would be difficult because it is not matching to the any of the readily available example of fruit, say for example apple or mango or orange. Okay, so that is the exemplar view of semantic memory. And finally, yes, so after discussing about the declarative memory, we have to come back to our procedural memory, and it stores the information about the skills that we learn, okay, and it is implicit. The knowledge or the skill that is gathered won't be, it will be hard to explain it to the other people. That is how procedural memory works. Next, we are discussing one other interesting concept in memory that is called as flashbulb memory. Okay, memory is centered on a specific, important or surprising event that are so vivid, okay, as if they represented a snapshot of the event. So, like storytellers, okay, so we would all have met a lot of storytellers, right, in religious places and every other, occasions. People would be like that, you would meet a lot of storytellers. So they would be able to explain things as if it was happening before, right, before your eyes. So how could that sort of memories are stored in our, brain? So usually flashbulb memories are so emotionally attached to our, mind. Say for example, I'm asking you, what were you doing on a particular day? You might be saying like, probably I would have wake up, I would have had my food, I would have taken bath and I would have left for college. So that is a usual day. For example, I am asking you a particular day, so like March 23rd, when the lockdown started. If I say that the word when the lockdown started, it is like you would all be like getting lot of emotional responses within your mind. Okay, so if I tell just March 23, you might not be remember certain things, but if I say that the word when the lockdown started, so that is the day when the lockdown was imposed, right? So all of us had lot of emotional reaction to that, anxiety, fear, confusion, right? So what will happen next? So we are going to, so 144 is something totally new for us, right? Being in Chennai, being in Tamil Nadu, it's totally new for us. So how we are going to get our food items, how we are going to survive this lockdown, how long this lockdown is going to be, all these questions are popping out in our mind, right? So you would be exactly able to say, yeah, that day at morning 7 o'clock I heard this news, and I also got information from my boss saying that I won't be having office, or from my college staff saying that I won't be having college. So we were totally confused, we were running out of stocks at home, right? And I was immediately trying to go to a grocery shop, but everything was closed, I was confused. So you will be exactly able to tell as if it was happening before your eyes. So those sort of memories are called as flashbulb memories. Other examples would include, meeting a roommate for the first time. So you're entering into the college, okay, and you're getting a hostel room, okay, and you're meeting your roommate for the first time. Those memories would never fade away, right? And also, day of graduation. Okay, so you would have recently got your plus 2 results, or you might be having your graduation day ahead, or you would have already had your graduation day. So what sort of memories you had associated with those days? It would be like so fresh in your mind still, and you could be able to remember it as if it is happening right now. Okay, so those sort of memories are called as flashbulb memories. So far we have discussed about memory, types of memory, and examples for those different types of memory. Thank you.